the deadliest tankers, that no one expected in World War II at the Bulge across the Ardennes forest. American forces were reeling from a surprise German counterattack that struck on the morning of December 16, 1944. While some frontline units stubbornly held their ground, others simply disappeared, annihilated by the Nazi juggernaut. Lieutenant General Courtney M. Hodges, commanding the U.S. First Army, looked down at his maps and saw chaos everywhere. One marauding enemy column particularly worried General Hodges. The spearhead of the elite German 1st SS Panzer Division, called the Kampfgruppe Piper, named for its commander, SS Lieutenant Colonel Joachim Piper. This powerful force was headed for the crossroad city of Liège, a key junction towards its ultimate objective of Antwerp and the Belgian coast. Hodges pushed his reinforcements, the 30th Infantry and 82nd Airborne Divisions, into blocking positions along the Amblev Valley. However, to stop Piper's tanks, Hodges needed armor of his own. His staff could only find one available unit in the area, the 740th Tank Battalion, nicknamed Daredevils. Its mission was simple: Piper must be stopped. There is a catch: the 740th Tank Battalion had no tanks. The 740th Tank Battalion, so desperately thrust into action against Kampfgruppe Piper, was formed in March 1943 at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Within a few weeks, the 740th moved to a heavily guarded enclosure far from the main post. All passes were canceled, and each soldier was sworn to secrecy. Only then did the troops learn their new mission. The 740th was to become a special outfit equipped with searchlight tanks designed to illuminate the battlefield at night. Everything about the Canal Defense light tank was classified. Built on an M3A1 medium tank chassis, the CDL, or Gizmo, as 740 crews called it, used a high-intensity carbon arc lamp inside the turret to light up the night sky while blinding enemy defenders. Orders soon arrived, transferring the 740th to Camp Baus, Arizona, for intense training. The battalion arrived at Camp Baus, part of the desert training area, in October 1943. The men encountered scorching heat, constantly blowing wind, and dust that seeped into everything: engines, clothing, even food. On November 12th, Lieutenant Colonel George K. Rubel took command of the 740th Tank Battalion. A wiry, 40-ish professional soldier from Phoenix, Arizona, Rubel was a battle-hardened veteran of the North Africa campaign. He immediately set out to turn his battalion into the best tankers in the U.S. Army. While Camp Baus had few CDLs, there were plenty of M4 Sherman tanks to go around, as well as piles of 75mm main gun ammunition. Rubel started his training program with the basics of driving and firing day and night over the roughest terrain. Everyone learned to drive a tank. The entire battalion qualified with pistols, carbines, rifles, and Thompson submachine guns. Tankers lived on their iron chariots, learning to maintain the machines as if their lives depended on them. All winter long, the battalion trained. When the time came to take the individual tank crew test, the 740th passed with an average score of 83.73%, the highest record in the armored force at the time. Top shooting gunners even competed for an $80 prize offered for the best crew qualification score. The unit was determined to do everything first and to do it better than anyone else. Out in the sprawling Arizona maneuver area, the men built a dummy minefield, infiltration course, and even a mock city. First to run the infiltration course was Lieutenant Colonel Rubel, shouldering a 31-pound machine gun while bullets snapped inches from his head. The outfit learned to work as a combined arms team. Mortarmen quickly learned their trade, while service company drivers practiced delivering rations at night using map and compass. Drawing on his own combat experience, Lieutenant Colonel Rubel insisted that all tanks fight with the hatches open instead of buttoned up, as armored force doctrine prescribed. Everyone looked for targets, Rubel later wrote, and if they didn't see the enemy first, they didn't live. This practice paid many dividends later. When the 740th Tank Battalion left Camp Baus in April 1944, it was proficient in both standard tank missions and top-secret CDL tasks. Departing for England in July, the outfit came across Utah Beach 3 months later. The 740th Tank Battalion then drove across France to join the First Army in November 1944. While the Daredevils were marching toward the front, it received news that its special mission was canceled, and the unit would reconfigure as a standard medium tank battalion. This meant it was to be re-equipped with M4 Sherman medium tanks and M5 A1 Stuart light tanks. Unfortunately, the First Army could lend the 740th only 9 Shermans and a few M5 A1s for familiarization purposes. Headquarters promised a full set of tanks to arrive, perhaps by January. In the meantime, Rubel was directed to train and organize his battalion. When German forces commanded by Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt launched their Ardennes counteroffensive, which became popularly known as the Battle of the Bulge. On December 16, 1944, the Daredevils were garrisoned in Neufchâteau, a muddy Belgian village 50 miles beyond the front lines. Within hours, it was ordered to deliver its 9 borrowed M4s to another unit. This left the Daredevils with 3 Stuarts and 2 towed assault guns. On the 17th, Rubel paid a visit to First Army headquarters in Spa. There, he learned the true extent of the German breakthrough and was told the 740th might have to fight as infantry, a task it was neither trained nor equipped to perform. Alarmed, Rubel returned to his command post and ordered the battalion to prepare for immediate action wherever it was needed. The situation looked grim as Kampfgruppe Piper rampaged westward towards Liège. It was then that fate intervened in the person of Colonel Nelson M. Lynn, who was organizing the defense of Sprimont, an enormous vehicle repair depot sitting a dozen miles west of Piper's advanced positions. Lindy informed First Army headquarters that his depot had several tanks on hand, ready to fight, but no crews to man them. Someone remembered Rubel's dismounted 740th, and at 12:45 p.m. on December 18th, orders went out. Move to Sprimont, draw all available armor, and prepare to defend the depot. What the Daredevils found at Sprimont shocked them. The depot had 3 tanks on the ready-for-issue line, and these were all missing essential pieces of equipment. Of the 25 armored vehicles present, most had been damaged in battle, and then cannibalized for parts. They lacked working radios, weapons, even tool sets. Not one tank carried a full load of ammunition. Company C's tankers swarmed on the equipment, laboring through the night to ready any vehicle they could get out of the gate. They were old, tired-engine M4s next to newer tanks that, for some reason, all had British equipment. Staff Sergeant Charlie Lupe's crew ended up with an M36 tank destroyer, while Sergeant John Thompson drew a duplex drive amphibious Sherman that was missing the breech block for its 75mm main gun, not to mention all 3 machine guns. Captain Barry ordered Thompson and his damn duck to the rear of the column. They would fight. Some tankers had to ride M7 self-propelled howitzers, or M8 assault guns, neither of which they had ever trained on. The Daredevils also found at Sprimont 2 M24 Chaffee light tanks, part of a demonstrations unit that was traveling around to acquaint U.S. troops with these new vehicles. The M24s would go into battle too, their crews learning by doing or dying. While the Daredevil tankers hurried to prepare their mounts for combat, the situation along the Amblève River was deteriorating badly. On December 18th, Major General Leland Hobbs's 30th Old Hickory Division began moving into position along the northern shoulder of Piper's penetration. His 119th Infantry Regiment, commanded by Colonel Edward Sutherland, had advanced its 2nd Battalion to occupy the village of Stavelot, blocking Kampfgruppe Piper's westward progress. Overnight, the riflemen of 3rd Battalion, along with 8 towed 3-inch guns of the 823rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, dug in frantically to prepare for an SS attack. It was not long in coming. At 7 a.m. on the 19th, German paratroopers and SS Panzer Grenadiers, accompanied by several Tiger II tanks, emerged from the dense fog in front of Stavelot, firing on all suspected targets, blasting the weary GIs from their fortifications. Piper's forces gradually gained a toehold in the village and began pushing the Americans out. A company of M4s from the 743rd Tank Battalion then arrived to help slow the 3rd Battalion's retreat, but by noon, the Germans held all of Stavelot. Hobbs absorbed this news with great concern. His 119th Infantry had been knocked out of the last defensible position in the Amblève Valley, Only the 119th's understrength 1st Battalion remained as a reserve. If it failed to halt Piper, the way to Liège and beyond would be wide open. Hobbs ordered Sutherland to be held at all costs. He then begged the First Army for additional armored support. The brave tankers of the 743rd were completely out of ammo and had to resupply. Staff officers from the 30th Division spread out in all directions to find anyone who could help hold the line west of Stavelot. One such officer discovered Captain Redberry in Company C of the 740th, posted near Sprymont. Pleading with Berry to join the 119th's desperate defense, Hobbs's messenger had to leave disappointed when the tank captain replied he could not leave his position without orders from higher authority. Those orders were not long in coming. Hobbs contacted the First Army, requesting the 740th be attached to his 30th Infantry Division. This was quickly done, and by 2 p.m., the Daredevils were on the move. Company C led off, passing the 119th Regiment command post with its 14 badly needed Shermans. Captain Berry shouted encouragingly to a nearby officer, "They're bastard tanks, but we're shooting fools." The ragtag column was just minutes away from a showdown with some of Nazi Germany's deadliest tanks. The day was cold and icy. Fog kept visibility down to 100 yards or less. There was only one way to go, down the road. And all afternoon, the 1st Battalion of the 119th Infantry waited for Piper's tanks. By 3:30 p.m., in a cold drizzle with dusk already starting to settle, the Germans had yet to appear. Lieutenant Colonel Robert H. Herlong, commanding the 1st Battalion, conferred with Captain Berry. They decided to organize their own spoiling attack, with Berry's tanks covering the road while Herlong's infantrymen protected their flanks. Their objective was Stavelot Station, a small granite block structure 800 yards away. 3rd Platoon, led by Lieutenant Charles B. Powers, went first. Powers moved out cautiously, hugging the cliffside of the road while his machine guns riddled every possible target. The young lieutenant stood up in his turret, scanning for enemy tanks. He knew his Sherman was no match for a German medium Panther or heavy Tiger tank, so his crew's lives depended on firing first, and accurately. The American column had advanced several hundred yards when Powers' tank rounded a curve near Stavelot Station. Powers spotted a Panther camouflaged with brush 100 yards away. The gunner, Corporal Jack Ashby, fired once, his shot striking the gun mantlet before deflecting down into the driver's compartment and setting the enemy tank ablaze. Moving forward, Powers' crew identified another Panther. Again, Ashby's aim was true, his shell ricocheting off the Panther's lower front slope plate. At this critical moment, Technician 5th Grade Howard Henry, the lieutenant's loader, reported that the gun was jammed. Powers' Sherman was helpless, and he waved the next tank up to finish off the wounded Panther. The next vehicle in line was not even a tank. Staff Sergeant Charlie Loopy and his crew happened to draw an M36 tank destroyer at the Sprymont Repair Depot. While Loopy's M36 had only thin armor plate, it did carry a powerful 90mm cannon. Corporal Beckman used it to blast the second Panther, firing 3 rounds into the German behemoth until it caught fire. By this time, Powers' loader had cleared the jammed gun, and the platoon leader resumed his place at the front. Advancing another 150 yards, Powers sighted a 3rd Panther in the growing darkness. Ashby fired again, blowing the muzzle brake off the tank's main gun. 2 more shots put the Panther out of action permanently. Lieutenant Colonel Herlong then halted the attack for the night. In 30 minutes of combat, Berry's bastard tanks had recaptured Stavelot Station and blunted Piper's advance down the Amblève Valley. Those months of hard, realistic training at Camp Baus had paid off enormously. But the 740th War was only beginning. Protected by 3 burning Panthers, Herlong's riflemen dug in while their daredevil brethren paused to resupply and rest. One tanker described his first night on the line at Stavelot Station. It was too cold to sleep. All we could do was curl up in the tank like a dog. Weather conditions on the 20th remained poor, with cold rain and fog hampering visibility. This time, 2nd Platoon, led by 1st Lieutenant John Calloway, spearheaded the attack. Riflemen from the 1st Battalion, 119th Infantry, provided flank protection while artillery and mortars stood by ready to fire. The day's objective was Stavelot, 2 miles up the road, where Piper's main force was waiting. Within minutes, Calloway encountered a Panther, which his gunner dispatched with an armor-piercing shell that opened its muzzle up like a rose. Second platoon then destroyed 2 SS half-tracks before running into a minefield that blew both tracks off Staff Sergeant Homer Tompkins's M4. Though shaken up, Tompkins and his crew scurried to safety. Despite the mines and heavy German machine gun fire, the Americans captured the hamlet of Tarnon that day, moving to the outskirts of Stavelot before nightfall, when violent SS counterattacks halted their progress. Late in the afternoon, some American infantrymen occupied St. Edward's Sanatorium, a large brick building on the eastern edge of Stavelot. Situated on a steep hill, the sanatorium was a natural fortress. Whoever controlled it dominated the battlefield. The enemy knew this, and around 11 p.m. launched a fanatical counterattack. Between 50 and 100 SS Panzer Grenadiers stormed St. Edward's and pushed the GIs out. Held up by a sharp cliff, the daredevil tankers could do nothing to help. They had to wait for daylight to resume their attack. At 4 a.m. on December 21st, First Lieutenant David Oglinski's M4 crawled cautiously forward into the murk. Suddenly, according to driver technician 4th grade Robert Russo, all hell broke loose. Shells from a hidden anti-tank gun pierced Oglinski's tank, forcing his crew to bail out. As the lieutenant boarded the next Sherman in line, a Panzerfaust rocket hit that tank, causing it to burst into flames. German Panzerfausts then blasted 2 more M4s. In an instant, 4 tanks were destroyed, 3 of them burning fiercely. With the road blocked and the St. Edward's Sanatorium in Piper's hands, the American attack bogged down almost before it started. Had American commanders known of Kampfgruppe Piper's critical fuel shortage, they would have felt better about their situation. Already forced by the fuel shortage to cancel his drive on Liège, Piper was now radioing for permission to withdraw eastward. Piper's failure to capture vital bridges or American fuel depots meant his still powerful force was stuck in Stavelot, a difficult place to defend. Many of his heavy tanks, their gas tanks almost empty, started moving back toward L'Église, where it was hoped that supply trucks would meet them. Back in Stavelot, the 119th Infantry Regiment and 740th Tank Battalion became part of Task Force Harrison, named for Brigadier General William K. Harrison Jr., the 30th Infantry Division's Assistant Division Commander. Additional forces from the 3rd Armored Division had joined the battle north and east of Stavelot, pushing Piper's forces closer to their base in L'Église. The noose was tightening, but first, Stavelot had to be taken. From a hill near Tarnon, Lieutenant Colonel Rubel somehow acquired a self-propelled 155mm howitzer and began shelling the enemy-held sanatorium. Firing over open sights, Rubel's personal artillery piece hurled about 50 high-explosive rounds into the sturdy structure before darkness fell. The Germans inside were stunned by the massive bombardment, but refused to yield. Captain Barry thought of a way to throw the Germans out. That night, he crawled completely around the sanatorium and found a place where a road might be built that could support tank traffic. Using volunteers from Company C and the infantry, Barry had a corduroy track built from cut-up trees and shell casings. Under cover of a thick smoke screen, service company recovery teams then towed off the 4 wrecked tanks from that morning's fight. By daybreak on the 22nd, Barry had maneuvered a platoon of M4s right up to St. Edward's. Firing through the windows, they kept the SS inside pinned down, while soldiers of the 119th entered to recapture the main building. This time for good. Almost 250 civilians, many of them children, were later found dazed but unhurt in the sanatorium cellar. Meanwhile, Powers and Loopy dispatched 2 more lurking tanks, one a Panther, the other a captured Sherman. This broke the back of Piper's defense, and the SS remaining in Stavelot quickly fled towards L'Église. Coordinated attacks by the 2nd Battalion, 119th Infantry, and Combat Command B of the 3rd Armored Division moving in from the north sped them on their way. By nightfall, the U.S. advance had gone 2,000 yards past Stavelot while enduring ferocious German resistance. Retaking Stavelot was a costly fight. In its first battle, the 745th Tank Battalion lost 5 tanks and 6 men wounded. Miraculously, no daredevils were killed. Infantry losses ran higher. The 1st Battalion, 119th Infantry, suffered 106 casualties, including 18 killed, 60 wounded, and 28 missing. On December 23rd, Task Force Harrison resumed its attack, but ground to a halt short of L'Église. Pieper's men fought desperately, hemmed in by the 119th Infantry to their west, 3rd Armored Division columns attacking from the north, and paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne pushing steadily from across the Amblève at Chenot. Deadly German fire kept the Americans out of L'Église that day, but everyone knew the end was near. Pieper huddled in his basement headquarters, while 155mm shells from Rubel's private cannon exploded overhead. It was after dark on December 23rd, and his 9-day race to the Meuse River had ended in total failure. Out of fuel, ammo, and supplies, Pieper passed the word to his exhausted troops: destroy your equipment and escape on foot. What was left of Kampfgruppe, Pieper abandoned L'Église before dawn on Christmas Eve. The Germans left behind at least 28 heavy tanks, 70 half-tracks, 8 armored cars, and numerous artillery pieces. Counting dead, wounded, and captured, Pieper lost over 85% of his original 5,800-man force. Escaping with him to the German lines were a mere 800 frozen, dejected soldiers. Pause. There was no rest for the daredevil tankers. After taking Stavelot and L'Église on December 29th, they joined the 82nd Airborne. Working with that veteran unit in extreme cold and discomfort, Rubel's tankers got along well with the aggressive 82nd. One paratrooper even noting the 740th was the only tank outfit that could ever keep up with us. Once the Battle of the Bulge officially ended in January 1945, Allied forces began the final offensive in Western Europe. The Daredevils moved from unit to unit, supporting at times the 78th, 63rd, and 86th Infantry Divisions, as well as the 82nd Airborne, as they marched across Germany. While their infantry comrades occasionally went into reserve, the Daredevils stopped only for maintenance or resupply. They were always on the go, but that was how they preferred it. The men of the 740th realized that only hard, relentless fighting would bring an end to the war. Bevy Day found the Daredevils occupying Halle, Germany. They had been at the tip of the spearhead for 138 days of nearly continuous combat, and it was now time to take stock. The death toll for the Daredevil tankers included 43 officers and enlisted men killed in action. They had also suffered the loss of 57 tanks during their 6 months on the line. Lieutenant Colonel Rubel's 740th Tank Battalion accounted for 69 enemy tanks destroyed, including 17 Tigers and Tiger IIs. The Daredevils also smashed or captured hundreds of cannon and combat vehicles. They even destroyed 200 enemy aircraft. Most of them caught on the ground when the battalion overran an airfield at Haguenau. Captain Barry, Lieutenant Powers, and Staff Sergeant Lupi each received a Silver Star for their actions at Stavelot. Every 740th tanker who fought there was awarded a Presidential Unit Citation. For many Daredevils, however, the best tribute to their heroism came from a tank commander named Cecil Taylor, who summed things up in 2008 with, "We were a good outfit. I don't know if it was because we were scared or just didn't have any better sense, but we got the job done." Brave Americans like Cecil Taylor and their ingenuity helped turn the tide for one of America's largest and bloodiest battles of World War II, stopping Hitler's elite SS at the Bulge. Thank you for watching this episode. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Stay tuned.